also going to push myself to show you this show that you're seeing right now because this is real. I don't think there's any getting through to you, and I don't want to be friends with you. I don't want to be associated with you. And I need to say that very publicly so that this chapter can just be closed. I think one of the biggest reasons that I'm doing this video is because all of us are somehow forgetting that his audience is made up of 12 to 14-year-olds, like dominantly, and he is role modeling to them his behavior. Oh my God, you tried to trick a straight man into thinking he's gay yet again.
Oh, brand new video.
Man, what are we doing here? What's the title of this video?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, James.
So he was aware how I felt about him and basically still like pursued this action.
His response to me was that he didn't think that I was straight. He told me, "You're not straight." Like, I'll throw up the DM conversation right here. And we kind of stopped talking after that for a little bit. And then he came back to me. He asked me for closure.
And somehow you're the victim. Did it at my birthday dinner. And I made excuses for you then.
I truly hope that everyone who participated in this, whether it be fans, influencers, drama channels, or credible news sources, take the time to think about your words and the impact that they may have on others, because I assure you, and I promise you, it's a lot stronger than what you may think.
Hi everyone, it's me again, and today we are doing part 2 of 3 of my Rhetoric series, going through the rhetoric of each of the Dramageddons in the beauty community. Linked below will be part 1 if you are interested in seeing that video. This one is a doozy, and I already know that it's going to be horrifically long, and you can tell by the timestamp, which I don't know what that's going to be yet, and I am scared because this is currently my longest script to date. Pray that my camera doesn't overheat like when I filmed the Mama Max video. Before we really get into it, links, source, ways to support the channel all down below, including Patreon, YouTube memberships, all that kind of different stuff, along with an email to suggest content. I am also going to continue to link the Operation Olive Branch master document if you would like to donate to GoFundMe's for families in Gaza. I explained in further detail in my previous video as well, if you want to go check that out. Thank you to my current members and patrons. Names on the screen. I want to say this makeup look was my attempt to look like James Charles in 2019 because I feel like that was fitting. I do also want to say I understand it looks rough and crusty and busted. It's because this is probably the least resilient makeup look known to man. I put setting spray over it in hopes to like lock it in, and all of the shadow evaporated back into my skin. That is why it looks like this. It is definitely a only take a picture for Instagram and then immediately remove it makeup look, but I went for the challenge instead and failed miserably. I also only own one white eyeshadow in all of my palettes, and it's from a palette that I bought like 4 years ago. So, if you're a beauty brand, you want to send me eyeshadow, hit me up, hit my line. I need white specifically, thank you. All right, for the structure, today we're going to go a little bit of a different route because of the sheer amount of content and context around all of the pieces. Also because a lot of this happened primarily on YouTube compared to Dramageddon 1, there is way more content to sift through than the previous. And for Dramageddon 3, it's going to be another one of those times where it will actually be more my normal structure because most of it happened Instagram lives, Twitter, Instagram, things like that. So this means that not only am I going to provide like a general context analysis, we're going to go through like all of the different videos. And yes, I think I found all of the videos. So yay to me, maybe? So here are going to be the parts of the video. It is also going to be chaptered down below for you. Part 1, James Charles' ego and Coachella. Part 2, which is kind of your context. Part 2, Bye Sister. Section 2.1 is the Tati video. Section 2.2 is the Why I Did It video. And Section 2.3 is Straight Men Come On video. Part 3, we have Jeffree Star's involvement. With Section 3.1, Never Doing This Again. Section 4, or Part 4, is going to be James Charles' downfall and Social Blade. 4.1 is No More Lies. Part 5 is the aftermath. And Part 6 is the conclusion. So without further ado, good Lord help us, let's get right into it. Part 1, James Charles' ego and Coachella. So most describe Dramageddon 2 as the war stemming from gummy bear hair vitamins. For those of you who were not chronically online at the time, Sugar Bear Hair was this, well, it still is active and present, but way less than before because people kind of figured out it's a little bit sketchy, is a vitamin company that does all of their vitamins in a sort of gummy form, ranging from hair, it's supposed to be like biotin kind of hair gummies, melatonin, which is what James Charles had promoted at Coachella, and a couple of other types of supplements as well. I need to note before going into all of this that there are going to be a ton of you that are going to be like, oh, it's just the hair vitamins. It's just the hair vitamins. I personally don't think this would have ever gained the momentum that it did if it only boiled down to the hair vitamins. So to begin, the allegations about straight men and James Charles span far beyond the things that Tati mentions or what was even mentioned in Sam or Gage's videos. For example, it was mentioned in a comment on my research stream, but I also thought about it that one of the last videos that James Charles recorded prior to By Sister coming out, it was called The Truth, ellipses, My Crush Does My Makeup. This video features Jeff Whittick, who appears visibly uncomfortable from essentially the second the video starts, where James is like touching up on him. And James is literally having him do the boyfriend tag in this video. And also in the video, they show that James called him dad and DM'd him to flirt. If you hear snoring, it's Gus. Next, I rewatched that video, actually just script, and it made me feel really yucky and uncomfortable because they also had like the straight guy convo where James Charles is kind of saying that like people aren't truly straight and yada yada whatever, but like in the context of everything else around it, he might have not been the person to be having that conversation. And I'll put that clip in so that you can suffer as I suffered.
There's what's called the Kinsey scale. So the Kinsey scale is from like 0 to 6, 0 being like completely straight, and 6 being like completely gay.
Okay.
And I truly believe that the amount of people that are a flat out 0 or a flat out 6 is like very, very small. I think that most people are very close to the ends, but there's a huge percentage in the middle too. If I had to put myself on it, I would put myself at like a 5.5.
So you're not even full gay?
I mean, no, there have been girls in the past that I've like thought were really, really beautiful. There's also been like trans guys in the past too that I was like really, really into for a moment in time.
There was also the way that James treated the Dolan twins, in particular Grayson Dolan, who used to make videos with James Charles in the sister squad, which comprised of Emma Chamberlain, James Charles, and Ethan and Grayson Dolan. Now, James in No More Lies claims that all of these flirting bits were pre-scripted and planned. I don't necessarily know if that's true because of the way that he recontextualizes things in No More Lies, but we'll get to that in probably like an hour and a half from now, to be honest with you. Also, random aside, I did a bit of digging on the Dolan twins, and they've only uploaded one little short film in the last 3 years, and only 10 of their podcast episodes remain up, and they're like all out of order, which I assume is just because of contractual obligations from sponsors. So it's kind of interesting that they seem to have wanted to like completely remove themselves from the internet, which also is very strange because like that was their whole upbringing. Like they did a lot of their life online. I think what happened was when their father passed away, things really started to like decline, and then especially the way that like fans were trying to show up to the funeral, I think that really deterred them from wanting to create online. There were also multiple tweets that James Charles had put out at that time in his career, kind of some stuff about like chasing straight guys and the issues in his love life, and kind of making a lot of these things that maybe should not have been public, very, very aggressively public. And something that people that have pointed out as a catalyst was the Sisters Tour, which was something that James Charles was planning. And also this was sort of acknowledged as a catalyst as James Charles also brought it up at the end of No More Lies. James Charles was planning on this tour where ticket sales were apparently pretty good according to James, but there were prices upwards of $400 to $500 for the meet and greet tickets, which were more expensive than meet and greet tickets from mainstream artists. And people were wondering what James Charles would be doing on tour anyway because he made makeup content. Most people assumed that he would be attempting to sing, which for those of you who've heard James Charles sing, we know it's not very good.
You believe God, God is the one.
There was a lot going on with that. So with this too, and the ticket prices and the way that he would talk about straight men, and the way he would talk about his love life, along with kind of a general ego that had grown over us exponentially over the past like year, people were starting to get kind of tired of the way that James Charles was treating other people in his interactions online. And the tickets for the Sisters Tour actually went on sale right before Tati's video dropped, which some people may think was intentional. I actually think one of the why I've seen this connection before was the Smoky Glow video on Dramageddon 2, which I will insert that clip right now.
In the month and a half leading up to the By Sister video for James Charles, he was in a very different position. I think one of the first things you have to talk about when you're talking about the months leading up to the By Sister video is the James Charles Sister Tour. So James Charles announced that he was going to be going on tour, and he was going to be basically doing some like meet and greets, some Q&As on this tour. He would be doing makeup stuff on the tour. He would be singing on the tour. And the only way that you could buy a package to meet James in person, like do the meet and greet portion of the show was by paying $500 for a ticket where you got access to meet him. Now, when people heard these prices, I think they were rightfully very much like, what? Most people were comparing the fact that you could go to like a Beyonce concert for under $500, you could go to a Bruno Mars concert for under $500, and just the fact that he was charging so much money just for like the honor to meet him was a little bit strange to a lot of people, especially considering other YouTubers had gone on tour prior to this, and their price point was nowhere near the $500 mark.
In 2019, we're at the tail end of the, I would say, prime influencer era. The COVID-19 pandemic truly shifted the perception of YouTubers and celebrities, and we'll get into that more at the aftermath section. And when going back into James's old content, there were so many videos that I think would never fly today, just because of the sort of general distaste for the hyper wealthy and the powerful that is kind of more prevalent on social media discourse amongst, like, I guess, quote unquote normal people nowadays. If you look, for example, on things like drama videos talking about Michaela Noguera, or talking about Glamzilla, or talking about Jeffree Star, a lot of them fixate on this concept of like this out of touch, oh, they're so wealthy, they don't know how to talk to people anymore, they don't know how to be people anymore. Meanwhile, the focus prior, let's say talking like 2016 to 2018, 2019, they touched on that a bit, but a lot of the time the conversations were revolving around like, oh, they're bad friends, oh, they're shady to people, oh, they're XYZ. But now it's like a huge thing. It's just the throwing around the wealth. This was not an issue at remotely to the same extent, even in 2019, but especially at times like 2016, where the rice gum flexing era, the Team 10 mention era was at its peak. When we're talking about in regards to James Charles, there were shopping spree videos with the Sister Squad where they would blow thousands of dollars on frivolous gifts for each other, many which, honestly, going back to their content you never see again. Just doing this as like buying all these designer goods for content is something that like I feel like now kind of is giving like guillotine energy, if you know what I'm saying. So now we can finally get to Coachella, which is not even the start of the video saga. So to explain quickly, Coachella is a music festival that a lot of influencers sort of kind of go to for, honestly, a lot of the time just photo ops and appearances, and then a lot of clothing brands nowadays will have these like reserved sections for them and different parties and things like that. If I recall, and I don't really want to look for it, so don't believe me if you don't want to, there was an influencer that showed a picture of like this, I think it was like the Revolve party or something, where it had like two sections where if you had over 1 million followers, you went one way, and if you had less than 1 million followers, you went another way. So that's kind of like how Coachella kind of has like warped. It used to kind of be a more kind of casual music festival, and some celebrities would go to it. It was in California. People say things like the queen of Coachella is Vanessa Hudgens because she started doing these really like boho outfits for the festival, and that sort of kind of escalated into these like ridiculous fits, such as James Charles' 2019 Coachella fit that I have censored for your viewing pleasure. For Coachella 2019, James Charles flew out a guy named Gage Gomez and housed him with James Charles in their rental house for Coachella in California. Gage was someone who claimed that he was questioning his sexuality upon meeting with James Charles. Here is a screenshot of James Charles tweeting in reply to someone shipping him and Gage, essentially claiming that Gage Gomez scammed him for clout because he was not interested in James Charles' sexual advances. In retrospect, it generally seems that James felt scammed because he did not get the sexual favors that he desired in return, hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft. This is also a sentiment that I felt kind of came through in the No More Lies video when talking about Sam, the waiter in Seattle, but we'll get to that again in way later from now. I want to add in the detail that I've not seen a single person mention, but at the same time as Coachella was happening, the gaming content creator Pro Jared had these like cheating accusations, and people were alleging PDF file-esque behaviors, and there were multiple women coming out, and he was sending pictures of his little Pro Jared to people. And this was at the time one of the biggest cancellations the internet had ever seen, with the most rapid subscriber loss until By Sister happened. And this was something that many content creators were making content on and exploded into the commentary sphere. And some people were contextualizing it with James at the time, but when I see people kind of go back to this in retrospect, they don't really mention it. This also brought forward the sort of social blade stalking that was a really big deal in Dramageddon 2. I even remember the comparisons of the social blade decline at the time as well. After weekend 1 of Coachella, James wanted to go into weekend 2 as well last minute because he felt that because he wasn't, you know, getting boinked in the way that he wanted to by Gage Gomez, and that there was too much drama from this boy, that he wanted to go back for a second weekend and did so by just kind of getting last minute passes, but he could only get the VIP passes, the ones that normal people can buy, you see, which was unacceptable. He needed the artist pass because he was getting ganged up on or something, or a bunch of people were kind of going at him at Coachella trying to take pictures with him and bothering him or whatever, and for some reason he couldn't hire security or anything, and instead had to arrange something else with Sugar Bear Hair. To do so, he contacted fellow extremely problematic beauty influencer Nikita Dragon, who I also want to mention in Dramageddon 1 video, I accidentally said that she was from the Philippines, which I ended up just kind of cropping out because, like, in the YouTube editor, so it's really bad, just because I felt weird saying that because I mixed her up with Brightman Rock, so I wanted to kind of make sure I corrected it here. But anyways, regardless, James Charles got a Sugar Bear Hair artist pass secured by Nikita Dragon. This was to keep, you know, James Charles away from the plebs, from the poors, right? And if you have these passes, you also get access to exclusive areas. Now, according to Nikita Dragon's text that she later posts, as well as James Charles' No More Lies video, what happened was Nikita gave them the number, they arranged, and they said, in exchange for these artist passes, what you need to do for us is just do an Instagram story kind of sponsor read for us in order for you to get this exchange. The context of why this was such a big deal is that Tati Westbrook currently, and at the time, and still owns the vitamin brand called Halo Beauty, which is a vitamin supplement brand made for often hair, skin, and nails kind of vibe, same thing as the Sugar Bear Hair, and overall wellness supplements. Now, Tati Westbrook, if you watch like her videos now, definitely giving like snake oil enthusiast. She'll talk about like, oh, needing like all natural makeup products and checking the ingredients of everything and the toxins and the, you know, the ions and all this kind of stuff. Things that if you study things like chemistry and like biology and things like that in like post-secondary contexts, you often find are just kind of marketing scams. Regardless, Tati Westbrook owns the vitamin company Halo and is a direct competitor with Sugar Bear Hair, especially back then when Sugar Bear Hair was a lot more prominent. And mind you, back then, Halo Beauty was also a lot more prominent. So, but it's because a lot of people have started to realize that a lot of these supplement brands are sort of kind of just predatory marketing schemes. Not necessarily saying that either one of those are. I'll let you decide that on your own. Many were shocked that actually that Tati decided not to do a makeup brand. Later, she released Tati Beauty, but that closed pretty quickly because of a lawsuit and contractual disagreements that are still going on to this day. For context, I'll explain the sort of philosophy of Halo Beauty as Tati Westbrook described it. She said that the goal of Halo was that the products would speak for themselves, so she didn't really do things like PR, influencer sponsorship, or any paid reviews. And Tati only wanted honest reviews from those who bought the products themselves as the incentive of spreading the word, and she did not want to pay anyone, including James Charles. Tati Westbrook, after James Charles' Sugar Bear Hair read, came onto Instagram stories crying about how she felt betrayed by someone who was close to her. Many people quickly put the pieces together that it was James Charles.
I'm stressed out and I feel really lost, and I feel in my community especially, like I feel really lonely.
And James Charles did do a sort of short apology on his Instagram story. That is what is required to get us to the Bye Sister video. And I am already 20 minutes into this. Good God. But I have to crop out a lot, so it's not 20 minutes for y'all, but that's good. Anyway, part 2, Bye Sister. For this section and each of the videos, we're going to do a point-by-point kind of rhetoric analysis of parts of the video that I find are particularly notable. The video opens with a series of clips of Tati and James throughout their time as friends, then juxtaposed with a clip of Gabriel Zamora doing his chit-chat, get ready with me, calling out Tati Westbrook's Instagram story.
James, I'm on to another Morphe palette, but you guys can still use code James for 10% off this one.
I'm the friend that's encouraging you guys to use code James for 10% off of saving. You can use anybody's code. Use, you know, James's code. I'm wearing my sister's apparel.
In the grand scheme of it all, like, you have to really check in with yourself and really think about, like, is this really like a thing? Because if not, you're going to be sitting on the internet crying over vitamins when things are really going on around the world. But I'm not one to tell you how to feel, but you know, like vitamins.
So if you're going to go on the internet and cry and heavily imply that there's a horrible human being and everybody can get what it is, girl, sit on the internet and talk about it then.
So in this beginning section is kind of what's referred to in the literary space as exposition, which is both a literary and rhetorical device where you provide context to a narrative prior to the narrative actually beginning. So you're sort of giving the direction that you're aiming for going in, or you're aiming to go in, before you actually give any of the further details. In the case of Bye Sister, this opening sequence is an example of exposition. It creates a narrative that Tati has always unconditionally supported James, hence the various clips that she has put on from her channel with the inclusion of James's socials and things like that to show that she was never opportunistic in her opinion regarding her relationship with James. She was always supporting him and never really asking anything from him specifically. It aimed to highlight the absence of support for her from James, but the sea of support that she had for James. Exposition exists as a pre-narrative, and grouping that with the Gabriel Zamora clip is an attempt to combat the ill will that he had against her and other people might have prior to going into this. The video itself then begins providing context to the infamous Instagram stories of Tati Westbrook crying. And now I need to remind you that the video truly shifted the drama community. Those changes had not quite happened yet. This was the sort of catalyst for that. Tati created this video on the basis of the beauty community from Dramageddon 1 precedents. So the way that people are navigating the things back then are very different than how they are now. And I'm also filming this on almost exactly the 5-year anniversary of No More Lies, actually. Let me check when No More Lies came out. So I'm recording this on May 23rd, 2024, and No More Lies came out on May 18th, 2019. So we are just over the 5-year anniversary, which I think is pretty good timing if you ask me. I feel like that's kind of slay. Now, let us continue. In this, that I mean that Tati's focus on this video was the sort of bad friend angle, which is something that I just discussed kind of being something that people were more focused on back then in comparison to things are now.
We've had plenty of in-person conversations that were at length about other influencers doing the same deal and him not liking sugar bear hair and dragging the other people and being like, Tati, I'm on your side. Like, you've got me. Like, I will support you. Yes, mom. Like, you've got my loyalty. So I always felt really comfortable with that. And I, of course, to not even get a phone call, to not even get a text a few days prior, but right after that sponsored post went up to have a text like, hey mom, love you, I'm stressed. Just so you know, XYZ, I just did this post, but it's no big.
And in my opinion, even the allegations regarding the straight men were, in my not so humble opinion, actually focused on substantiating that fact that he was a bad friend rather than like it being related to like her being wronged, or they were made to sort of link the two rather, like her being wronged, but also like him being a bad person. And of course, this is like, and then there might be like even further evils hidden behind the scenes. And remember how much impact Manny MUA being a bad friend to James Charles had in Dramageddon 1, which I discussed in length in that video. She even says that the behavior of him being shady and feeling the need to give his 2 cents, Gabriel Zamora as well, is very typical influencer behavior. I also pointed out in my stream, and I feel like I've ruined a lot of people's lives low-key with this, and I'm going to ruin y'all's too. Look at the way that Tati Westbrook is sitting. You see those 2 little lumps? Are those her knees? I actually genuinely need somebody to answer that for me because I can't figure it out. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on? Now, we'll get into Jeffree Star's videos after. Obviously, we know in what sequence that is. I talked about that earlier. Can't even remember the order now. I'm already brain rotted. But I talked about Jeffree Star's apology in the Rhetoric of Jeffree Star video, which is the oldest video on the channel currently, where I brought up the concept of over-lexicalization, which is essentially just the repetition of ideas for the need of putting in a certain goal or message. It is essentially the academic term for yapping to get out of something. For this part, Tati goes on describing different forms of pain and how they are valid. And in sort of this, for this was to kind of waive any idea that this sort of argument was just like frivolous influencer infighting, and that she felt valid to feel pain in the way that she was. She also adds a kind of this random detail about like how emotions fly a lot because they're creatives, kind of making them sound a lot more important than they really are as influencers. Then Tati goes on to discuss that James Charles was wanting to contact Tati, but that the texts were getting increasingly demanding because she was not responding. And No More Lies aim to disapprove this, but in retrospect, I feel like it does not, especially when looking at the messages. The argument about drama channels, I feel, was also to just appease anyone that was kind of looking for any dishonesty in Tati Westbrook's comments on the video. Next, Tati goes through the timeline of James' career, utilizing sentimentality of the life of someone that could have had a much better path if he were to maintain the path that Tati Westbrook and James is also Tati's husband's name, I know it's going to get confusing, wanted to put him on in the first place. I do not have a ton to say about the business stuff, which is a pretty large part of Bi Sister, because this knowledge is outside of my tax bracket, and I've never even made $2,500 on a video in my entire life, even in the measly Canadian dollars. So I kind of don't know what much to say about that. But now we move to the kind of over-sexualization aspect. And yes, I will play the iconic birthday dinner clip for y'all.
I am used to this around, you know, everyone else, but not his parents. Like, I thought around his parents that he would not behave this way. Like, it was just like, no big deal. Like, sucking dick and cock. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, time and place. And you did it at my birthday dinner. And I made excuses for you then. You were talking in detail about things you wanted to do to the waiter. And when I said, James, he's straight, your response was, doesn't matter, I'm a celebrity.
And I'm going to introduce now the concept of conversational implicature, where someone says one thing but means another. Again, this is just sort of the academic way of saying that. In this case, the consensus at the time was that Tati was trying to protect those that were going to deal with James Charles, whether that be the fans, whether that be other influencers, whether that be anybody who wants to get involved with him. To a certain degree, I feel that it did, but that there's also other aspects to note. Listen how the context of James Charles' transgressions is based on how the actions humiliated Tati Westbrook. You did it at my birthday dinner. I had to call everyone and apologize on your behalf. Time and place. And even the accusation that Gabriel Zamora did not confront him, which for some reason did not have to come out until Gabriel Zamora humiliated Tati by talking about her in the video. The video ends with a series of what ifs about James and how he would respond, further putting ideas into the heads of the audience, kind of trying to cook up just an expansion of the narrative or to further solidify gaps that she might be leaving because of legal implications, because it might implicate her negatively, or because maybe it wasn't even there to begin with. That's all for that specific video. We'll move on to the next one of Tati Westbrook's videos. So after all of this escalated, Tati Westbrook decided to put out another video, which moves us to section 2.1, why I did it. Originally, I could only find this like weird reaction video that was only a few minutes long. There were only a couple of those on the internet, which I watched a couple, but they would only use like the tiniest portion of the video, and I couldn't find enough information on it. I looked through articles, I looked through social media, I looked through Reddit, I looked through Internet Archive. I could not find the full Why I Did It video anywhere. So then I decided to extend my search to other creators who might have had the video, things like drama channels that were active at the time and stuff like that. And I couldn't find it through, as I mentioned, like any sort of archive or full uploads or anything like that. And when I did find one article on it, it didn't even include the video. So Drama Channel Dustin Daly actually came in absolutely clutch and looked through his actual like hard drive that he had, because this is just like a random fact, but like video files and things like that are huge. Like each one of my raw recordings are usually close to 10 gigabytes alone each. And obviously if I put out a video a week, let's say at 10 gigabytes for, let's just say all the files end up being 10, it's probably closer to 15. That's 520 gigabytes a year minimum, right? So a lot of us have these, which mine, because I'm poor, are just external hard disk drives. This is my recovered videos from 2021, 2023. I say recovered because I got hacked at the end of 2022 and had to completely wipe my computer, and I had not started backing them up yet. So let's say like big scandal videos. I have things like the Michaela exposing that girl that Cody knew from rehab. I have the Andrew Callahan apology videos on here. I've got all of the Sneeko content on here. I've got Jeffree Star going on the Barstool podcast. Like, oh my God, I have the Colleen Ballinger saga stuff on here. So yeah, I've got tons and tons of like pretty like notable videos that have been deleted that over time would, you know, come up, right? I even have like this really weird podcast interview that Ruby Frankie did. Regardless, because a lot of us have these sorts of files and or these sorts of, you know, hard drives and things like that, or some people pay for like iCloud and stuff, people will send each other videos that kind of have been wiped from the internet. This is why people say things like the internet is forever. I actually remember when I got hacked, someone DM'd me that they have an archive of every video on my channel if it got completely wiped, if I wanted any of them back, which is like a little bit terrifying, but also flattering at the same time. Anyway, so I'm just saying, don't, you know, post without thinking too much, maybe, you know? Now that I have a copy of the Why I Did It video, if you're a content creator And because let's say because this was 5 years ago or whatever, and you have any sort of desire to get access to it, please let me know because I will send it to you because I feel like I gotta share the wealth now that I have access to it. The video Why I Did It opens up with a flabbergasted Tati Westbrook who announces that this is not her return to social media and that said return will not be happening for a while. She continues with relaying some of the feelings that she had where she expected to be the one to face the most controversy and that she was coming for someone with a much larger following than her.
Never in a million years would I think that this situation would reach what it did. And I've just been at home reflecting on all of this. And really when I made that video, I thought that I would be the one that would take the hit. You know, I thought I was going against, you know, millions and millions of subscribers and that my separate part of the internet, you know, my 5 million, because like this is how crazy this has gotten, would be affected and that I would be the one losing subscribers for speaking up and that I was going against someone with a lot more power. And I knew that very well. And I knew this would cause a lot of controversy. I know that. But I didn't think it would get to this magnitude. I didn't think it was possible.
At this time, to my recollection, James Charles had 3 to 4 times her following, which I think is still somewhat consistent now. This is presuming that she did not think that the build-up with the Sisters Tour, with the ego, with the straight guys, with the XYZ other stuff, with the ridiculous Coachella outfit, with the tweeting, all that kind of stuff, did not have as much an effect as it actually did. Also, random a thing, we love the Jeffree Star Cosmetics lipstick display in the back. Like, oh my god, this is such a time capsule. Because also, it's Tati's old studio too, which she abandoned not that long after this actually. Tati calls for the end of any abuse to James Charles as she transitions to the reasoning that she had behind making Bi Sister in the first place. Tati brings up that she fears that the reach that James Charles had, which if you combined it, all of his followings at the time was 30 million, was mostly children and young people.
The thing is, it's about a lot, and it's about a lot that I didn't even talk about. It's about someone who reaches across all platforms 30 million people that are children, dominantly children, and who is losing the ability to get honest more and more each day. I'm losing the ability to reach and say, hey, like, I don't have a contract with you. I'm not your manager. I don't earn from you. I'm not taking anything from you. I am your friend, and I've watched you from, you know, your infancy here on YouTube to what it's become, and like, I care about you, and I think that you're in a lot of trouble, and you need to stop behaving this way because it's going to go real bad if you don't.
And there comes an inconsistency given that she says she does not like the outrage of people being very mad and upset with James and being abusive or what have you. But also, I feel like if you're potentially endangering children, which is the way that she's implying, or negatively influencing them, that this sort of reaction would perhaps be warranted. Tati boils down the video as trying to stop someone she loved from doing something stupid, and that she was one of the only people who truly loved James because he had surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men. There is a nature of a sort of ad hoc reasoning, because on one hand, you're extending the application of the video as an intention to protect a young audience, but then you're dodging the explaining it as predatory directly, and also trying to like boil down and reduce your own impact that you had. Because with all of this, you're only framing it realistically as a wake-up call, which I just feel like is not realistic. She said she wanted to meet James in a Google office to discuss what happened because she does love him, but felt that there needed to be a mediator in a sort of public space, but also said that parents should have conversations with their kids, in this context specifically to James, because he is so out of touch with reality. Tati said that her focus was on change and that she denied interviews because she did not want to ruin James, and that was not the goal for this situation.
The media, that's never happened. I was offered to do interviews, and if I really wanted to take him down and ruin him and cancel James Charles, I would have been at every studio and I would have been sharing every little detail that I could, and just know that I didn't. I think that we owe it to James to let him figure it out and heal, and I hope that he does that, and I hope he seeks out people that have his best interest and not just people on his payroll, because you need that and you deserve that and you need to be guided.
She also actively discourages anyone from name-calling on her behalf. The focus is both the balance between stating her reasoning, but also being human. That's kind of like definitely the goal of this video, and something that she does state throughout. And she's being worried about being over-emotional, but also not trying to be too cold. The video ends with Tati saying that she's going to be taking a break, which ended up lasting for a very, very long time. I feel like I'm just going to air some of the sentiments that many were airing out at the time. I feel like I just wanted consistency because that is truly what indicates intention. That's why people say things like, you know, change with your actions and not just your words. Clearly, Tati felt a certain way, but at the same time, she also constantly pitied James and would almost downplay her own roles and things. Tati put out one more statement regarding this until over a year later, where she made her breaking her silence video, but that is going to be in my Dramageddon 3 video. I'm not touching that today. Good God, help me. She put in a notes app statement 2 days after she posted the Why I Did It video. This was also posted the same day that Jeffree Star uploaded the Never Doing This Again, further kind of implying the sort of cahoots that people had throughout the beauty community. But we'll get to like the Jeffree Star video later, but let's read the notes app. It says, I've been in communication with James Charles through an intermediary for the last week, and we believe that it is the best interest of our community, our viewers, and our own mental health to put this matter to rest. For that reason, I will not be making any further public comments, and I hope and pray that no one else will make any more hurtful statements on my behalf. In my original video, I felt the need to publicly break up with James with a warning call loud enough for him to hear. I was attempting to explain my upset and concern so that everyone would understand my position and end the speculation that it was all over vitamins. Over the last 8 years, I built my career based on honesty, integrity, and trying my best to do what I thought was right. And the toxicity and chaos that ensued over the last 10 days was absolutely not my goal, as it was a fight that I was almost certain to lose. Although I do not regret raising my concerns, I completely regret the way I went about saying them. I could have and should have found a better way. Even in this moment, I still have so many things I'd like to clear up. However, the continued call for receipts is nothing more than a call for never-ending bloodshed. As such, I'm setting aside my overwhelming need to be understood and will continue my conversations with everyone in private. I hope that our community is somehow strengthened from all of this madness and that we will strive to hold ourselves and each other to a higher standard. To my audience, I need you to know that I am blessed to have your support and I love making videos for you guys. I'm truly so sorry for all the hate this brought to our doorstep. I love you and look forward to returning to my regular content soon. Except this ended up resulting in a very long hiatus. There was a brief period of trying to upload, but that didn't really work out, and then there was just like a break for like a year and a half or something nuts like that. I know the timeline for this is a bit wacky, but there are also many other characters that were making videos on Tati Westbrook's coattails. Drama channels were also making a video on every single update as the audiences were eagerly waited. I feel that this was the internet having a sort of sense of retribution, especially with the gravity of allegations that Tati was bringing up in conjunction with the very, very strong ego that James Charles had acquired over the last year. Gage tweeted when Tati put out her video saying, well, and then he proceeded to make videos. And I know that there was so much already, but now we need to go through what Gage and Sam said, the two sort of straight guys in this whole 2.3 straight men come on camera. We're going to start with Gage Gomez's video, which I completely forgot was filmed in black and white for some reason, and he's also eating chips the entire time. This is like really like classic banger content that you're just not getting anymore. Everything is so like painfully overproduced that like we just never get slays this hard anymore. This is coming from me, who also I feel like this is like at least not overproduced by any stretch of the imagination, because it's just a camera and a light that's like tacked into my wall and like a microphone that I got like 4 years ago off Amazon, but it's still definitely flashier looking than eating chips in black and white off a cell phone camera, that's for sure. Gage's video existed as it provided timeline throughout everything, but I also don't really know when the original date of release was, but it's sort of refreshing acknowledging that he knew that people just wanted to hear his side of the story. Like he's just like, yeah, y'all want the drama and I'm here for the drama. And I kind of live for that. The only other person I've seen be like this honest with that sentiment is if you're in like the Amberlynn Reed community, when Destiny came back online and just decided to do like a full timeline of everything that happened between her and Amber in her relationship with her.
It's been a minute. I made you guys wait a little longer than you wanted to. I need to get this right. Let's start from the beginning.
So the interaction between Gage and James started in the DMs, and Gage felt the need to respond. He said that James tried to manipulate him into sort of a bi curiosity after he had already said that he was straight. Gage felt that James thought he was entitled to his time, getting upset when he would not clear his schedule to hang out with him.
I wasn't interested in any of that. We then stopped talking for a while. He had to shoot a video in New York City for a bit, but I was in school. He came here, he wanted to hang out. I told him I was busy. His flight got delayed, so then he saw this as a perfect opportunity to hang out, even though I told him I was busy. He then proceeded to get mad at me for not clearing my schedule to meet up, hang out, get food, chill, whatever, talk. And he went off on social media. Like, first of all, he blocked me on everything. Went off on social media, and this is the first time that I was, I guess, subtweeted about. Here's a screenshot. The tweet about pretty boys being assholes and whatnot. that's about me.
And this leans into the point that Tati was talking about, this concept of like feeling that James Charles had a lot of very transactional relationships, which often depended on people agreeing with like everything that he's saying. Gage then goes into his history of James Charles subtweeting him when James would not get his way, something that is still pretty prevalent. Like, I'll put on screen right now, like, the guy Sam did an OnlyFans, and James Charles was replying, like, mocking the price of it. After this time, even when James Charles' reputation right now is probably, like, the worst it's ever been, and he's back to, like, being nasty to people and things like that. He called someone fat on, like, a TikTok live or, like, a TikTok reply.
Why might TikTok get off your feed? Block me then, fatty. Not my problem.
So things have really only just like gotten worse for James, but like rip bozo L ratio LeMayo or something. I don't know. Anyway, Gage said that James asked him out multiple times and would block him briefly when he would say no to the advances. And I will get into what phenomena that I think is going on here after we kind of go through Sam's video. Despite all of this, James invites Gage to Coachella. Gage accepts the invitation, assuming that they're going to kind of hang out as friends. This is according to Gage. Gage said that despite all of this, he did have fun, but James did try to manipulate him on the trip and would get very upset when Gage would refuse his advances. And Gage said that once he left Coachella, James immediately started tweeting about him while blocking him. He also called Gage a con artist.
Right as I left, he put up the tweet about the real friends and all of that stuff, which was kind of irrelevant, the tweet, but that just shows like you leave right away and they're already like, I guess, talking bad about you and they can't say it to your face, which is kind of shitty. And what's interesting is like these influencers are like chasing clout all the time and they're all loud when it's drama, right? But only when it's amongst themselves because it generates the views and the engagement. But when it comes to like someone like me, a normal person who's not like an influencer or public figure or anything like that, they couldn't be truthful. And
there was also a very short video of Gage addressing the tweet, which the second video went into detail about. That's kind of why I skipped it. So the first video that Gage put out was not the one detailing everything. It was just addressing the tweet. I didn't even see it until after because it was just so short and kind of nothing that it didn't have the same traction. Before I get into the academics of it all, let's go into Sam's video now. Sam was a waiter who was at the "you did it at my birthday dinner," where James was constantly trying to like figure out how he could get the attention of the waiter. Sam begins by saying that he was mentioned in both Tati and Nikita Dragun's videos. I cannot really find the Nikita Dragun video. It's also not that kind of relevant based on like what I've seen. James began asking other waitstaff about Sam, but the other waitstaff were professional and did not want to put Sam in a weird position, so they ignored the advances that James was requesting to make, which is still like, even besides like the sexual thing and but just imagine like this guy like imagine if like scripts were flipped, which is a thing that comes up a lot in this, that, you know, male sexual harassment is not treated the same and things like that. But imagine like you have this like waiter who's a girl and she's pretty, and then this guy's like hounding everyone for her number. Like, it's so gross and nasty. And James doesn't deny doing this either, I will say. Afterwards, Sam's discussed with his sister what had happened and showed that he had gotten a DM from this person. Sam's sister was like, "Yo, that guy is crazy famous and I watch him on YouTube. You should definitely reply to the DMs."
The next day, my sister convinced me to direct message James Charles, and I did. We can throw the screenshot up here somewhere and post. I said, "LOL, it's Sam, the butler from John Howie." John Howie's the restaurant that we worked at. He replied with OMFG, and then I replied with LMAO. Then he asked me how I was, and then you can kind of read here. He's like, "Sorry about last night, you were very attractive." And then I responded with, "It's all good, very flattering actually." Then he said, "Love that. Did not know you were 19. Oh my god, I am too." We proceeded to talk for a while. It was his last night in Seattle. He actually invited me out to his hotel. At that time, I was bi-curious. I had never done anything with a guy before, and I was curious.
Sam discussed the night with restaurant and everything with his sister and described who was there. And apparently his sister knew these people and knew of James Charles and told Sam that it'd be a really good idea to reach out to him because he was like cool and famous and she watched him on YouTube and stuff. Which this is really just an example of James's influence putting people into positions that they would not have put themselves in before, something that he denies throughout normal lives. So the two kind of DM back and forth and things like that. They have a bit of conversations. James kind of is giving like weird like pleading energy apparently. And also there was an arrangement where they met in a hotel room where Sam was thinking that maybe he might have been bi-curious. They made out for a bit. Sam said it was like horrific. And James was pleading for him not to leave after this makeout session. Later down the line, Sam offered friendship, but James declined and was very angry. Once again, going to social media to complain about rejection.
Message that I am straight and that if you were to find out, I would think it was right if I wasn't attracted to him. But if you still want to find out his friends, that was an option to him. So he declined my offer and canceled the flight. And that's when he got really sad, emotionally took to social media. And his response to me was that he didn't think that I was straight. He told me, "You're not straight." Like I'll throw up the conversation right here. And we kind of stopped talking after that for a little bit. And then he came back to me. He asked me for closure.
And James told Sam that Sam is not straight. He came to Sam after this in the DMs again for closure. Now, there were conversations where, and this is mentioned in the video as well, that Sam was a bit upset that James was talking to other men while he was talking to him, even though Sam is straight and things like that. I understand kind of the issue with that, but I think the thing is that I think Sam felt like, well, maybe James could be right. Maybe like, you know, there are ways around this. And then, you know, maybe he should be the one to help me through it maybe. But if you wanted to be involved and you were allegedly wanting to do monogamy, it kind of makes sense to be upset. But on the other hand, I get it if you're not interested in men or what have you. James in both these interactions does something that in this article that I found is kind of defined as the rejection abuse cycle. So in this paper called Caught in the Rejection Abuse Cycle, Are We Really Treating Perpetrators of Domestic Abuse Effectively? I'm going to explain how it is defined in this paper, but it reads, we have named this sequence the rejection abuse cycle, and it is graphically demonstrated in figure 1. The cycle has 4 steps. 1, the man experiences his partner's behavior as rejecting and as triggering his previous experiences of rejection within the context of past attachment relationships. 2, the man perceives his partner's behaviors as threatening to his sense of self or ego, invoking shame. 3, the man defends himself against this threat in the following ways: by denigrating his partner, minimizing her criticism, rejecting her message, and or minimizing his emotional rejection. And 4, the man becomes psychologically or physically abusive towards his partner when his mounted defense does not seem to have his desired effect of soothing his experience of rejection and subsequent disruption of his sense of self. The cycle is complete when the man's abuse results in his being further rejected and therefore not achieving the emotional closeness or alleviation of distress that he may have been wanting. Now, obviously, this is talking about heteronormative couples and an interaction between a man and a woman, and also people who are actively in a relationship. But I will say that James shows a lot of these behaviors as opposed to like this sort of intimate psychological and physical abuse because he wasn't close enough with these people. He was still attempting by doing like the subtweeting and things like that as like a form of public humiliation, like leveraging a very huge platform that he has. While this phenomenon relates specifically to the cycle of relationships, James's biggest issue lies with him placing his desires over like real life, realistic possibilities. He imposes his wants onto others and interprets hesitation as internalized homophobia and personal issues rather than, you know, not being interested in him. As if his power and status could not play a role to get in these situations, and it couldn't have possibly just been that he was too pushy himself. I do not think there was a lot of rhetorical devices per se incorporated with the 2 videos of the guys talking. I don't think they felt they had enough leverage that they could utilize those that much, and they kind of just talked about what they thought was relevant, I think. Drama Channel Doesn't Daily sent me some receipts, in particular this one that Tati had put out right before No More Lies. Here is a concrete thing, evidence of Tati calling James. I don't think there's any reason to doubt that this was her feeling, especially with the context of these 2 videos. There are really similar opinions kind of indicated in that cycle. This comment says, Tati, why are you trying to ruin James Charles like this? He doesn't deserve any of this. He's 19 years old. He will make mistakes. Here's a question for you. Have you ever made a mistake? And Tati replies, behavior should not be swept under the rug or justified away based on someone's age. The entitlement I see online every day is poisoning the minds of the kids who are watching and emulating destructive behavior. If the roles were reversed and it was a famous straight guy using his power to emotionally manipulate young, vulnerable women into bed, and when they declined, took to Twitter to publicly shame them, everyone would be freaked. There shouldn't be a double standard. I'm speaking up for those who are too afraid to look uncool because they need boundaries when it comes to people commenting on their sexual and physical self. I understand the gravities of these topics because of my age, wisdom gained through life experience, and the sexual is part of my history. This is not the way people should be treating each other. I know that I need to speak up on this. It's not out of hate. I truly wish for change and healing. We can all do better. Being vocal publicly was the only way. Now we move to part 3, Jeffree Star's involvement. Clearly, we cannot have a huge drama without Jeffree putting his eagle claws into everything that surrounds it. And hypothetically, allegedly, Minecraft, in my opinion, this is all imagination and not something that I am saying with any certainty, to rid any competition from getting in the way, hence his sort of celebratory 20 million sub tweet. We need to begin with solidifying ourselves with the context of Jeffree Star's power up until this. Recall that the first Jeffree Star x Shane Dawson series aired in mid-2018 and had over 50 million views across the series, which this was discussed in Dramageddon 1, and I talked about that in the video as well. There were even discussions at the end of the first series that there was going to be another collaboration of a makeup product between Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson. There was also social media posts throughout 2019 talking about the two filming together. This was the peak of Jeffree Star's YouTube fame with millions upon millions of views per video consistently, and an expanded audience thanks to Shane Dawson. Also sort of coming out of the martyr as the martyr of Dramageddon 1 while doing things that really made him seem like the most evil out of all of them. And his cosmetics brand was also booming at the time. In 2019, Jeffree was untouchable. People were even afraid of having any sort of negative feelings towards his makeup products. You could quite literally not get your grubby little fingers on a Jeffree Star Cosmetics launch upon release if you were not on the website or on Beautylish or something the second that it released, clicking refresh constantly. Once By Cicero came out, Jeffree Star's little Twitter fingers came out. On May 12th, Jeffree Star starts throwing shade on Snapchat, the exact same thing he did in Dramageddon 1.
About an hour ago, Jeffree took to Snapchat to wish every mother out there a happy Mother's Day, and then he started throwing shade.
Hold up. Also, I just logged onto the internet for the first time today, and I'm like, oh my god, huge congratulations to Miss Tati Westbrook for hitting 8 million subscribers on YouTube. This is just the beginning for you, baby. I miss you, I love you, and I cannot wait to see you when I'm back from Michigan. So congrats. Mwah! I love you. Life has a really funny way of doing things sometimes, you guys, doesn't it? The phoenix always rises out of the ashes.
Now, it's obviously no secret that Jeffree is saying that Tati is a phoenix and she rose out of the ashes because we're all aware of the current situation that's going on. That's the reason why I'm making this video. So I don't even know if I could call that shade. Like, everybody knows what Jeffree is talking about. But this is where it gets a little bit crazy. Ian Jeffree, who is James Charles' brother, tweeted out and said, "Why does everyone act so tough over the internet?" And this is when Jeffree just threw a grenade and walked away. He quote tweeted Ian and said, "Why is your brother a... Why'd you really move back to NYC? Exactly. Shut the... I'm completely shook. My wig is disintegrated. It went up to the sun. There's no hydration left in my body. But if you thought that was all, there's more." Jeffree then tweeted out and said, "There is a reason that Nathan banned James Charles from ever coming to our home again. There's a reason why I haven't seen him since Glam Life Guru's birthday in February. He is a danger to society. Everything Tati said is 100% true."
When Jeffree Star really started tweeting about this, he quote tweeted James's brother Ian, who was like 16, 17 at the time, where Jeffree Star was in like his mid-30s to my recollection. Ian tweeted something topical, but actually unrelated, that just said, "Why does everyone act so tough on the internet?" This is right when By Cicero had come out. Timing was a little bit rough. Jeffree also tweeted on the day that By Cicero dropped that he posted a picture with Tati congratulating her on reaching the milestone of 6 million subscribers. Jeffree also began to claim that he had all of these receipts in the background and made it seem like he was cooking up a cartoon villain-esque expose video to bring forth all of the skeletons that existed in James Charles' closet. Okay, so slight segue, right? If we go to the oldest video on the channel, you will come across the video called The Rhetoric of Jeffree Star. Now let's keep it real. Okay, the video is low-key unwatchable. Being recorded on the inside camera of my iPhone 8 Plus in my basement room with no lights and a lamp pointed in my face in my basement bedroom, I do not really want to reinvent the wheel necessarily when it comes to my thoughts, specifically on never doing this again. However, I don't want to make y'all watch that video because it is literally so rough. So I'm just going to contextualize some of the things I talked about in that video, but also combine some of my new thoughts I have now. So Jeffree was alluding to being the hero for this Dramageddon, just like he was going to be from the first one, and was trying to hint that he had all the information that anyone wanted in order to bury James Charles, and we just need to stay tuned for what he was going to bring us. This was also a sentiment that came through in the text that Jeffree was sending James, that James reads in No More Lies. I will put that on screen right now. Instead, we got this video of Jeffree doing this sort of superficial moral grandstanding where he wants all of us to know that he's like better than everyone that got their hands all dirty in this drama. For the original Rhetoric of Jeffree Star video, I break down the video using what's called critical discourse analysis, which when I talked about things before, like conversational implicature, that is a part of critical discourse analysis. In this, I talked about all the ways that Jeffree Star was using language to paint a different image of reality without directly saying any statements, so you cannot point out any specific evils that Jeffree was doing. Back in 2020, I made a PowerPoint for my video, which I unfortunately don't have anymore. I looked for it everywhere. But I'll quickly summarize some of the main concepts and ideas that I did highlight for that video. I first talk about this concept of hedging and over-lexicalization. I begin with hedging, which, to simplify it, is when someone has a very specific viewpoint or desired result, but they're not fully leaning into it. This is when they're trying to walk you into coming to this conclusion on your own, even though they've only really given you enough to only get to that conclusion. But they did so in order to kind of make it feel like you figured it out on your own and that it was an independent decision of yours. And often this is to seem impartial or perhaps morally superior to the person that was making the direct statements in your opposition. Over-lexicalization, as I mentioned before, is sort of just a way of saying that someone is yapping really hard. And you know when someone is like lying or like obviously does not know what they're talking about and they just keep talking? It's when you say a lot to say literally nothing. Then there's a specific aspect of repetition in relation to like rhetorical devices. And I mentioned that in the original video that he repeats a lot of very specific terms that he thinks legitimizes him. In that video, and I still feel this holds true, he repeats the terms in a dark place and behind the scenes like way too many times. I even made a little sequence for it.
It's a different level. So he has, for repetition, repeats the term behind the scenes, 236. I was in a dark place. By repeating behind the scenes and I was in a dark place over and over and over again in this video like nothing you've ever seen.
There was a lot happening behind the scenes. I was in a very dark place. Behind the scenes, I was in a dark place yesterday. Because behind the scenes, this isn't funny. And that's that behind the scenes, there were people in my head regurgitate and bring me into a dark place.
I have many timestamps for that. I have 236, 308, 415, he says behind the scenes again. 620, he says behind the scenes again. Dark place, he says again at 1035. In this case for the over-lexicalization, he over-lexicalizes that he knows the most in the beauty community, so he was very justified to say what he said, despite never being able to pull up any proof of it. To this day, just completely disregarding it. He said that in the video that a lot of people forgot that he did say that like it may or may not be true, but he also puts himself in a position by the type of repetition over lexicalization that he does, that he still is the most knowledgeable and that it shouldn't be questioned.
I'm very outspoken, whether it's about brands, shade ranges, someone stealing from other companies, an old friend that I've had to set straight. You guys know me for being brutally honest. You know me for keeping it real.
This one has a lot of qualifying and hedging. So he qualifies these sometimes I've spoken out too much, saying that what he's saying was definitely true and definitely valid, but he just said too much. He didn't say, I said the wrong thing, I said hurtful things. He just said, I said too much. He also qualifies by saying the louder tweets. His tweets are loud, saying for how much damage they cause. Instead of, I have a large following, so the tweets I say have a lot of influence. And he didn't use influence because he didn't want to take control of the situation. He just said it loud as in a sense of a lot of people see them. And that they have a large span, which is not the same thing.
I don't regret much in my life, but I regret hitting the send button because they were bigger and louder than I ever imagined.
Finally, he ends the video with a hedge where he says, I think we all need to take a mental vacation, making himself relatable and saying something that, you know, oh, this was exhausting, despite this being this is regarding sexual allegations and a lot of really, really, really serious topics. He normalizes at the start by saying, I know a lot happened behind the scenes. He doesn't say, oh, I know we tried to ruin this kid's career, and he almost killed himself.
And these terms exist to separate Jeffree from these actions, which is very iconic in retrospect and also ironic iconic in like the most like pessimistic way possible, because he talks about needing to separate himself from his actions and all of these things, and how it is so important to keep moving forward when this video is not even on his channel anymore, and I had to find this one on the Internet Archive. The second term, behind the scenes, implies a level of exclusivity to the information that Jeffree Star has in particular, which to a certain extent is going to be true because Jeffree Star knew James Charles in real life and we didn't. The way that influencers, especially high-profile ones, present themselves on camera is usually vastly different than in real life. Even me, like, I don't talk to people like this. I'm not that formal when I talk to people. I'm not necessarily this, like, full direct when I talk to people. My personality in real life is way more goofy and silly. These videos are more structured in the way that I would present things in, like, school and stuff like that. Obviously, in school, I'd be a little more serious than this, but still, this is kind of like the middle ground between the two. Jeffree Star got to interact with a lot of these high-profile influencers off camera, and I know that a majority of their interactions were for monetary gain. This became very prevalent in Dramageddon 1 and in all of the different scandals that have happened since then. I will add the clip montage that I made for the original video because I don't want to do all that work a second time, but it really shows how many times it repeats in what was a pretty short video. I believe it was like under 20 minutes long. The video is an analysis of the audience's response to Jeffree tweeting and the drama channel videos and things like that. And this is my opinion, in my opinion, is why Jeffree Star made the video in the way that he did. So here is like my mandatory tinfoil hat moment when talking about Jeffree Star, because I do it every single time. There was this video by the YouTuber named Ashley Kyle that came out in 2020, which I will elaborate when we talk about Dramageddon 3 in the next one of these. But in the video, Ashley Kyle claimed that a lot of large beauty creators like Jeffree and James Charles were in contact with larger drama channels and would kind of tell them what was going to happen before big videos dropped so that they were ready to film when these things were coming out. Ashley Kyle at the time was saying that this meant that they were on their payroll, like since she was on Jeffree Star's payroll. It's not that, it's that because if you're the first one to release something into the algorithm, then you're more likely to get the most views on it. That's why there's a lot of like contests to get something out as fast as possible. Tati also mentioned talking to T-Spill and Here for the Tea prior to By Sister coming out. So clearly there were a lot of conversations between drama channels and these beauty gurus at the time. I understand that many creators have their reservations on the Ashley Kyle video, and that, like, I understand that fully, especially because like a term like payroll was like not at all what it actually was, and that's like a weird way to explain it. The implication of consistent contact between Jeffree and reaction channels, along with the way that he like constantly hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft, gauges reactions of himself and looks himself up all the time, it makes me wonder if any of these like larger drama channels tried to kind of walk him through the way that he should respond in a way to not implicate himself in anything, because perhaps behind the scenes, no pun intended, I guess, in regards to Jeffree Star, there were a lot more evils that he was responsible to, a lot more things that he was implicated in than we even know to this day. And I feel like a lot of drama channels like Peter Mon imply this a lot. And I know recently, Paige Christie, formerly known as Petty Page, has been tweeting a lot of stuff about all these things behind the scenes with these drama channels. So that's what I have to say about that. Let's move into part 4, James Charles's downfall and social blade. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, you really had to be there for this whole mess. It is really dramatic, but it's not necessarily inaccurate to say that we kind of all knew where we were when By Sister dropped. So By Sister dropped in late May of 2019. So I was 19, and no, I lied. I was 18. I was 18 when this dropped. In my last semester of Cégep, which is kind of like community college in Quebec that you take when you finish high school before you go to university. And I was in like my final semester of Cégep. It was like a big thing, and I was studying for all of my exams, I remember, at this like Starbucks that we had in the area. But what was happening at that time was a lot of us would bounce between studying at the Starbucks to studying at the college and going back and forth or whatever. And I remember getting home after studying all day and like throwing my bag on my bed and immediately putting on By Sister, and I'm like texting all my friends that were like knew anything about it, even people who like weren't into makeup. And I actually feel like, and I see if I can find it, I remember posting about it on my Finsta, and I hope I can find that post. And one of the guys in my college commented on it, like James was going to be vindicated, which kind of happened, but then like unhappened. So I still think it's funny in retrospect. James Charles essentially dropped off the face of social media and Earth, it felt like, once like the general pylon just like really kicked into full gear. You know, when you look at the amount of subscribers and it's like, so I just realized which is really, really annoying, that I forgot to write in a section about the Tati video. That was supposed to be in conjunction with Bye Sister. Love that. So I'm just gonna have to freestyle that context because there's no way we can talk about this without that being done first, which I love that for me. I love when things work out. I love being a genius. I love having everything always be good and this not happening to me constantly. All right, so now we gotta rewind. It's rewind time. God, I have to freestyle this too because it's not in here and I'm not about to refilm. Oh my God, because I am already way too deep into this. Stick with me. After Coachella, after the Sugar Bear Hair Instagram stories, after Tati came out crying, Bye Sister drops, okay? James Charles in Australia on, he's going to go to like this like meet and greet thing. I believe they were opening a Morphe store or something because this was something that was like really common at the time. There were like constant like Morphe store openings where people would go to the malls and stuff. Jeffree Star and James Charles have shut down like whole like Hollywood Boulevard, I think one time or something like that. Like these huge streets in the United States where people were just like flooding the malls and like they didn't even have enough security. It would always be this huge mess. James Charles, I think though at that time it was just like a regular meet and greet, but this was just something that was happening all the time. Anyway, it was way more common back then. The pandemic kind of like stopped those as a concept. Like meet and greets with influencers is like way less prevalent. I don't even think they really happen anymore. It's like not something that I ever really see. James Charles in Australia. So when this all dropped, right? Because Australia's got like a wacky time zone compared to like California, right? It's something like 17 hours or 14 hours, something like that. Anyway, so James said that he got a text at 4 o'clock in the morning that Bye Sister had come out. And so he had to kind of, obviously, it took a few hours to do anything because it was like, you know, the middle of the night. So James Charles comes out with this video called Tati, which has no makeup on. He has a hoodie on, very circa Dramageddon 1 core. This is very following the pattern from the previous time, where James kind of just apologizes to Tati, kind of just admits to guilt pretty much, which definitely didn't help in the sense of him being guilty, because when he's just kind of talking about how sorry he is and not really trying to sway any of the allegations, it really puts people in the position of being like, okay, well, you're not saying that anything was wrong, so I assume it was right. Kind of this like idea of it is allowed as long as you don't say no, which is a very bad mentality to have in most circumstances, obviously, but I digress.
And I'm so disappointed in myself that I ruined a relationship that did mean so much to me, even if I didn't do the best job of showing it all the time. And through all of this, what sucks the most is that I know there's nothing I can say or do to ever earn that friendship or trust back. But I don't blame them for it. A lot of most of my career over the past few years has been about me making mistakes and trying to learn and grow from them. And I haven't always done the best job of that. I can admit that. But I have always tried. Because I know there's a lot of people watching me, and that a lot of people look up to me as a role model. And I hate knowing that I disappointed not only them, but most importantly, two people that have been role models to me doing this. I wish that I could say this is the last time that I would make a mistake, but it won't be. I know that'll disappoint people more and more as I continue to learn and grow every single day. I have a long way to go, a very long way to go. But that's okay. I'm gonna keep trying my best and keep learning and growing, and be the best version of me that I possibly can be.
This was sort of this thing that James Charles talks about later, which is the guilty until proven innocent thing, where he didn't say that these things didn't happen, therefore people think they just did happen. So after this video, the flack kicked into maximum overdrive, and then you get the why I did it. After that, then the notes app, there's a bit of silence, and then we get no more lies. Okay, I'm sorry for messing it up. The video was pretty short, not much to say. It was compared, like the Tati video was compared very tightly to like the Laura Lee, like, oh my god, I'm so sorry for being a blatant, horrible racist apology. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now we can move on to No More Lies. I'm even getting the video names mixed up. I hate filming, TBH. So, like, I love the scripting and I love the editing and I love the yapping, but the recording part always makes me annoyed. Now, you know how when you look at my subscriber count, it's rounded? I have to check what it says right now because I don't want to get it wrong. Right now, it says I have 40.3K subscribers, okay? So that's 40,300 subscribers. But then if I go onto my YouTube Studio, which is like the thing that tells me how much money I have and stuff, I have 40,388. So there's a reason why it's rounded for y'all. Rumor has it, it was because of the Bi-Sister Dramageddon debacle why we no longer see this exact sub count. YouTube was involved with this. That was confirmed by Tati saying they wanted the meetings, and there was a lot of kind of whispers behind the scenes, if you will. Not behind the scenes, they were just people tweeting about stuff, hearing things, and yada yada, whatever. You had to be there. I'm not digging for that stuff. That would need to be like the content that would need to be like the level of hunting that like those commentary channels do when they talk about lolcows. Like, I'm not doing that. Respectfully, thank you. So YouTube like was fully involved with this, so it makes sense that this could have been the thing that did actually happen. So there were channels that were literally just existing to track James Charles's subs going down via like live streams. This was also something that was happening when there was like the PewDiePie versus T-Series thing. James Charles lost over 1 million subscribers in a day. To this day, the biggest subscriber loss ever on the platform in a single day. And there was also constant live streams that would compare like Jeffree Star's subs to Tati's subs to, you know, James Charles, Tati, and Jeffree like on the screen, and like which ones are going up, which ones are going down, and all that kind of stuff. There were genuinely multiple channels to this day that have had their highest ever earning months in May of 2019, because this was how big of an internet phenomenon this was. So this was how big of a phenomenon James Charles had to go against post-Tati video into making No More Lies. People were demanding the deplatforming of James Charles, many citing the double standards towards male victims of SA. Pretty much every notable commentator or viral tweet did not see any possible comeback for James Charles. That was until No More Lies. 4.1 No More Lies. I want to say that I've also made a video specifically on the rhetoric and impact of No More Lies. That video was from January 18th of 2022, filmed in my sad student accommodation apartment, the same one that the Jeffree Star video was filmed in, but I got moved upstairs to a bedroom that had windows, and it was a place I lived in during my undergrad. Anyway, I understand that a lot of y'all were not here, okay? At the time, a very large majority actually were not here. I think I had like 1,500 subs because this was after my Crib Show art video came out, but before my Sienna May video came out. And the Sienna May video is what like pushed me to get into like the momentum to get to 10K subs. And this video is shy of 10,000 views to this day. So again, I understand that a lot of you who have not seen it. I made a point to watch it, but I don't want to double dip on that one too much because unlike the Jeffree Star video, I actually think this one's really good. I do better videos now, but it is very much watchable and I think it's pretty cool. And for me, it was like super short, so that might be an interest of you. Let me know down below if you want me to just make a playlist of me commentating on like specifically beauty guru drama. Because I feel like I have like so many videos in relation to like Dramageddon stuff that could be its own playlist. Anyway, that video regardless is linked in the description. So if you go in the description, I'm going to have a sources section. And then I'm going to have a section of just like my videos that I've mentioned here. So to super summarize what I talked about in that video, if you don't want to go watch it, I started with the origin of huge apology videos referencing Dramageddon 1. I talked about the rhetorical concept of apologia and the sort of lawyer-like presentation of evidence that James Charles brings in the No More Lies video. And I connected to Michel Foucault and like the sort of power structures and the way that the elite set precedents for all different types of discourse, boiling down to even personal interactions between like common folk, if you will. I talked about the Slazo situation that happened in 2019 or 18. And I talked about Pyrocynical as well, which had happened, I believe, in 2020 at the time. and how apologies like Creepshow Art that failed to present receipts in a more direct way like that were manipulative, as well as like Gabby Hanna's videos on Jessie Smiles. So I showed how like Slasmo and Pyrocynical followed a closer to like the James Charles No More Lies formula. Gabby Hanna and Creepshow Art attempted to follow it in the sense of receipts, but for in the example of Gabby Hanna, she duplicated screenshots to make it look like she had more than she had, and Creepshow Art was just like using the things that she knew in like the most manipulative way humanly possible. I also talked about this sort of how it kind of shifted into a very receipt-obsessed society, even when these scandals and interactions are from things that are hyper-personal that I don't think if you were in a healthy relationship with someone, you'd be collecting receipts on them constantly regardless. Now, I'll quickly go over what the No More Lies video was and its impact. To this day, No More Lies remains as the most viewed video on James Charles' channel with 57 million views. And this video, which I talk about in the Rhetoric and Impact of No More Lies, that's why the word impact is in the title, this was a cultural reset. The video presents itself as a very distinct middle ground. It clarifies the previous video with Tati, the one titled Tati rather, and he talks about how he feels like he is sad that he approached this in a very impulsive, over-personal nature, which was something that worked for a lot of people prior, but even through looking back at Dramageddon 1, was failing to lose its ability to sway people.
1 week ago, I uploaded a video to my YouTube channel titled Tati. This video was a direct response to the video that Tati Westbrook uploaded to her channel titled By Sister. Before I say anything at all in this video, I want to make it very, very clear that everything I said in that video in regards to my sentiments towards Tati and my apology, I stand behind 100% and still reign true. I know I got emotional in the video, I apologize. It was something very, very hard for me to deal with, especially when it came to talking about my very own mother.
He felt that Tati brought out a lot of personal issues. Then James does an insert where he's frustrated that he needs more details because of the Why I Did It video coming out, because of Jeffree talking about everything that happened on Snapchat, etc. There is an air of frustration in James. And I've said this 100 times over at this point. Emotions are deemed illogical despite both being normal, human things that happen, and an expected result in these confrontations. Now, I know that people are going to go to the comments and say that what they mean is when people act irrationally due to emotional outbursts that happen in these very heated conversations. But the thing is, for one, in a lot of these commentary spaces, there is a lot of aggression and anger, and that is not deemed illogical despite being an emotion. Secondly, there are emotions beyond just flipping out on people. And the thing that people often say to other people in these heated conversations or debates aim specifically and only rhetorically to drive these reactions out of people. People like Destiny, people like, even like when Sneeko would try to debate people, people like Fresh and Fit, people like that. There's like that podcast, was it called Whatever or something, where they just put a bunch of women on a table and they have the same bit every time being like, what's your body count? I don't even know if they're British. I don't think they're American actually, but you know what I'm talking about? Like this sort of, you know, let's just slut shame women podcast, for example, where they'll just like belittle them and degrade them and be so awful to them. And then when they're like, man, you're really mean, they're like, oh, woman, emotional reaction, right? So despite the fact that quite literally their entire goal is to invoke that reaction, then they deem that it's illogical. That implies that they could not have their goal met and that their premise was incorrect in the first place. It's just so strange because people are often rejecting the very aim of their comments and thus rejecting the very premise of their comment, which to me, and oftentimes discussed in classical rhetoric, is more illogical than someone who registered the comment and then reacted to it. So in more simple terms, without me stuttering so much, hopefully, because I'm getting really tired of filming this video, let's say I call you a big old poopy head, okay? In an argument, I'm like, you're a big old poopy head and your mom sucks, okay? And then you go and you're angry. You're like, that's terrible. Why are you saying that to me? Like, you're mean, right? Me going, haha, you reacted, you shouldn't have reacted like that, is more illogical because then what was my goal? That served no other purpose than to invoke a reaction because it doesn't have any actual validity behind it. That's what I'm saying. Now, a lot of these debate bros are going to argue, oh, well, I was just saying a fact. I was just saying whatever. A lot of times in these conversations, it's things that boil down to in denying someone's human rights, denying someone's identity and ability to exist, denying someone's freedoms, or just being hateful and derogatory. So I still don't think, just because you use big words, that that is something that can actually be driven to that connection. Sorry. I studied this too. Actually, I studied this for real. I didn't just like... I'm not Destiny going on Wikipedia being like, when did Israel happen? And then going on these like debates with these scholars with countless books. Just, you debated like Finkelstein, right? Oh my God. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? That's an example. He just got like fully bodied in the best way possible. But regardless, I got off tangent on that one because it just pisses me off so much. Okay. Despite what the debate lords say, when they state that emotions are supposed to be separate, you're actually supposed to both use your emotions and the audience's as well in tandem with your competitor's emotions to solidify your argument further. Because here is a quote from quite literally the book that invented rhetoric called Rhetoric from Aristotle, okay? Obviously this is translated into English, so the pacing of the phrase is kind of weird. I'll explain this in like people English after I read the quote. Persuasion may come through the hearers when the speech stirs their emotions. Our judgments when we are pleased and friendly are not the same as when we are pained and hostile. It is towards producing these effects, as we maintain, that present-day writers on rhetoric direct the whole of their efforts. So what he's saying is that a lot of the goals of discourse at that time and the way that it was progressing was to utilize the emotions in tandem with how they were going to present their argument and what the premise of that was going to be and how it would be fully executed towards the end. Now, this is what James Charles was doing as well, and this is why this video worked in a way that a lot of stuff has not worked since and will never work again, in my opinion. Then James continues by describing the Coachella debacle and the Weekend 2 and the boy and blah, 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 which is all things I've already touched on ad nauseum. I am over an hour and 20 minutes into filming this right now, so clearly I've talked about it already. The defensive nature that James brings leverages the power of the words being said about him as he laces it between clips in a very commentary video style format. This was also done to place James' reactions as reasonable given the gravity of the things being said, which I think is like a good way to go about it. Cicero describes this power that he has writing, which Cicero is another classical rhetorician, classical philosopher. What too is so indispensable as to have always in your grasp weapons, wherewith you can defend yourself or challenge the wicked man, or when provoked, take your revenge. So this is just talking about the power of being able to interlace evidence with the emotional reactions, with the way that you are able to foundationally prove yourself to people. Even if you kind of warp things in your favor, which does happen a lot in these forms of discourse. So when I was rewatching No More Lies, I was particularly confused in the way that James negated information in clips that he brought forward himself. And this is something that is just on the more manipulative side of the way of presenting your comments and interlacing them through. So you know how I talked about Sam earlier, but not like into like super specific detail? It's because I had not yet watched No More Lies this closely yet. James says that Sam was flattered by his advances and reached out to him. So already we're not being honest to the way that it was presented. I'm gonna play the clips of Sam's explanation juxtaposed with James's explanation.
And at that time, I really didn't know who James Charles was. I recognized his face, but I didn't know who he was. So when he came in with everyone, it was kind of a big surprise. So when he came into the restaurant, I noticed him and his kind of entourage with Jeffree Star, him, so Jeffree Star, James Charles, and all of Tati's family was there at my restaurant. And throughout the night, James and his friend and everyone, they just kept looking at me, but especially James. And he was looking at me. Later on that night, he started talking to the other employees about me, asking me if I had a Valentine. This was on Valentine's Day. And he kept asking the waiter if I was single and if they thought I was very attractive. Or he especially thought that I was very attractive and he wanted to get my phone number and all that. But the wait staff at my restaurant didn't let that happen. He left and it kind of just went untalked about. The next day, my sister convinced me to direct message James Charles, and I did. We can throw the screenshot up here somewhere in post. I said, LOL, it's Sam the busser from John Howie. John Howie's the restaurant that we worked at. He replied with, OMFG, and then I replied with LMAO. Then he asked me how I was, and then you can kind of read here, he's like, sorry about last night, you're very attractive. And then I responded with, it's all good, very flattering actually. And he said, love that, did not know you were 19, oh my god, I am too. We proceeded to talk for a while. It was his last night in Seattle. He actually invited me out to his hotel. At that time, I was bi-curious. I had never done anything with a guy before, and I was curious. Later that night, he invited me out to his hotel room. When I got there, in the video, he said I was brought up by 4 security guards, but in reality, I was brought up by 1 concierge. But besides that, I get to the hotel room, we say hi, it's all fine. We end up watching a movie, and after that movie, he asked to kiss me. And I was very nervous, because I had never done anything with a guy, and I was bi-curious, so I said yes. We ended up making out for around an hour, and if I'm being honest, he's the worst kisser I've ever kissed. Way too much tongue. Yeah, but besides that, so he didn't want me to leave from the hotel room, and he kept telling me to stay, like, please stay, don't leave me, all this and that, but I really wanted to go home, so I left.
And would never, and will never, use my fame, money, or power to manipulate or get any sexual actions from a guy. That is disgusting, it is not me. And the fact that Tati brought this up blows my mind because she knows the real story. The story that we're talking about here is a situation that happened when I was in Seattle for Tati's surprise party with a boy named Sam. Now, I'm going to tell you the full story since everybody seems to be leaving out literally every single detail. In Tati's video, she mentioned that she was disgusted and had to apologize to her family for me apparently saying things that I wanted to do to a waiter and then justifying those actions by saying, I am a celebrity. Okay, this literally did not happen. What did happen is that me, Jeffree, Nate, and my best friend Drew all flew to Seattle to surprise Tati for her birthday on February 14th. That night, we went out to dinner with Tati and James and her whole family, and we're in a restaurant. There was a cute boy across the restaurant that I kept making eye contact with and that I was interested in. And the conversation of dating for me and Jeffree both came up at the dinner table, and we were talking about it for a very, very short period of time. The conversation never got inappropriate. Period. The boy that was involved with the story is named Sam. Now, when I originally wanted to do this video addressing everything, I did plan on crossing his name and keeping him completely private, but he has since come out and made a video of his own talking about the situation, just like Tati leaving out many, many details. But in his video and in the screenshots that I have, Sam mentioned that he was perfectly fine and found the flirting that I was doing flattering. So I'm not really sure why this got turned into something much bigger, but it simply was not.
And he was looking at me. Later on that night, he started talking to the other employees about me, asking me if I had a Valentine. This was on Valentine's Day, where he especially thought that I was very attractive and he wanted to get my phone number and all that. But the wait staff at my restaurant didn't let that happen. He left and it kind of just went untalked about.
The I'm a celebrity thing is really incredibly frustrating to me because this is an inside joke between my friends and I that Tati has also participated in, and she twisted this to be something far worse than what it is. This is the joke that really is where we say I'm famous, not I'm a celebrity, and it's something that we don't say in public very often because without context, I get it, it looks and sounds really, really bad, trust me. Literally, famous is synonymous with anything good. So yeah, if my YouTube video does well one day, my friends will say, oh my god, James, you're so famous. But literally, if my friend takes a good Instagram photo, oh my god, you're so famous. If our boneless buffalo wings at Chili's are extra delicious one day, oh my god, these wings are so, so famous. It has nothing to do at all with fame, power, or money, which is what Tati alluded it to being, and it is so frustrating that she turned an innocent and funny inside joke that she has participated in into something so beyond disgusting. I'm going to try my best to make a long story very short. The next day, Sam slid into my DMs first and I happened to see it. We started talking back and forth and he mentioned that he was flattered by me flirting with him the night beforehand.
Sorry about last night, you're very attractive. And then I responded with, it's all good, very flattering actually.
A few minutes into the conversation, I asked him about his sexuality and he told me straight up that he was bisexual.
Oh my god, you tried to trick a straight man into thinking he's gay.
There was no straight men being manipulated anywhere in the story like Tati mentioned. Later on in the conversation, he asked when I was leaving Seattle and I told him the next morning, to which he responded, I wish we had time to hang out, and I said, hey, why don't you come over to my hotel tonight, we can watch a movie together. He said, sounds good. Later on, he messaged me first and told me, hey, straight up, I've never done anything with a guy before, I'm a little bit nervous, to which I told him there was absolutely no pressure. This is all shown in the screenshots. Sam showed up at the hotel, we watched the movie together, and we cuddled. After the movie, I asked him if he wanted to kiss, to which he said yes.
I get to the hotel room, we say hi, it's all fine. We end up watching a movie, and after that movie, he asked to kiss me. I said yes. We ended up making out for around an hour, and if I'm being honest, he's the worst kisser I've ever kissed. Way too much tongue.
All right, note taken. After making out with Sam for over an hour, I did invite him to sleep over at the hotel.
And he kept telling me to stay, like, please stay, don't leave me. All this and that, but I really wanted to go home, so I left.
Of course, I wanted to spend more time with him, but he said that he wanted to go home and be in his own bed and think about everything that was going on because it was quite a lot, and I definitely understood and did not blame him. He then left and sent me a message afterwards thanking me for being so understanding, and I told him that I would always be there for him if he needed literally anything. Point being, everything that happened in the hotel room was 100% consensual, and this is confirmed
I said yes
by the only two parties that were actually there, being myself and Sam. After this night, Sam and I continued to talk for the next several weeks. At first, it was really great, but I noticed that his feelings towards me and sexuality were kind of wavering quite a lot, and I came to the conclusion that he needed to figure himself out and that I needed to move on because I kept getting hurt. Last important note to keep in mind about the timeline of the whole situation. On May 2nd, Sam texted me from his friend's phone saying that he was fully gay and needed to talk to me about something important. I called him, and instead of talking about that, he asked me if I was talking to another guy at the same time that I was talking to him. I was a little bit confused as to why I was being asked this, but I did answer him honestly, and then I asked him what made him come to conclusion with everything. To which he said, I'm actually not fully gay. After dealing with this a million times, I was frustrated and I hung up.
Notice that James left out the part about Sam's sister telling him how famous James Charles was and that Sam should reach out to him. Thus, his fame is literally at the forefront of the interaction. Sam did not reach out to James Charles because he thought he was so cute and slay at the restaurant, and that it was wrong for people to get mad at James for hounding them. No, he reached out to James because his sister was like, yo, this is like the biggest creator in the beauty space. And this is interesting because James earlier in No More Lies says his fame is not something that he's leveraged in these interactions. James' defenders are now commenting, probably under my video, that there's no way that he knew this. Okay, hold your thoughts. While at the time, you may make this assessment, as in at the time when James and Sam were meeting each other, you also have to acknowledge that James was at a dinner with a bunch of recognizable people. And people that could be recognizable even if you're not necessarily in the beauty space. We're talking about Tati, she did vitamins. We're talking about James, he was also like on CoverGirl, which was like a very mainstream thing. Like James being like the cover boy. I did not have internet until I say this in like every video, I feel like, because people will, the reason why I say it's in like every video is because people will try to like, be like, you knew that thing and you're lying and da-da-da-da, my camera's gonna overheat. Oh my God. Because I should have known because I existed on the internet, I didn't. Anyway, I didn't have internet until I was 17 and the cover boy story was everywhere. Like, it was something that was international news. Not to mention, Jeffree Star did music, MySpace, and then became a beauty guru. James, in order to make this video, also had to watch Sam's video to put the clips in, where Sam does discuss the power of James's fame and how James was ignoring it when presenting this narrative. The benefit of the doubt, to me, is simply not there anymore. James also ends with saying he told Sam that he'd do anything for him, but also ignores the part when Sam said that James wanted to fly him out, but when Sam said, I do not want to be sexual with you, James was like, okay, whoop, never mind. I did not notice this as much before when I had watched No More Lies again, how manipulative this, particularly like the Sam part was. But now that I've watched everything all close together, it kind of makes more sense. Now, I'm going to have to stop filming for a bit because my camera's going to overheat, so if the lighting and stuff changes, I apologize. James then included a clip of Jeffree Star talking about being into straight guys that aged like milk, especially because of Jeffree Star's they, them is fake Barstool podcast rant he went on last year that I also have a video on.
Quite a lot of people. So in order to provide a little bit more context, I would like to play a clip from Tati's friend Jeffree Star's video titled The Truth About My Relationship.
I was single for a long time, and the reason why is because I am really not attracted to anyone but what we call in this world as a straight male or a normal dude. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, I am really into straight guys, and I know that is going to not be surprising to a lot of you. So, you know, from just traveling everywhere and meeting dudes all the time and being around that world for so long, I really kind of fell into a trap of always being someone that was kept like the secret. And when you are someone like me who is, you know, I get asked all the time, even every day on my channel, you guys, I get comments, are you a guy? Are you a girl? Are you transgender? Are you trying to transition? What are you? Being someone that is like me, that is a guy that looks like a woman, right? I keep doing this because so many people are not into labels these days, and I love that. I'm all about that. You do you, call yourself whatever you want, whatever you believe in. I think that is the beauty and the freedom of, you know, living, is we can be whoever we want to be. I've always been into straight men, and the problem with that my entire life is I never found real love, because straight men behind closed doors, they love people like me, they love hooking up, they love having fun, they love the relationship as long as other people don't know.
I really like this clip from Jeffree's video because not only is everything in it very accurate, but I honestly feel like he did a great job of explaining a topic that is very confusing and complex and that not a lot of people understand, including me fully, to be honest. Yes, as a gay man, I am attracted to men, and in the past, whenever I have found a guy cute on Instagram or on social media, I have slid in the DMs with a simple hello or a nice compliment. If anybody ever made it clear that they were not interested or were not gay and didn't want to talk, I always apologized for the unwanted attention, and the conversation was put to a halt immediately.
And it's just really funny because it's like, James now hates Jeffree and thinks Jeffree is like an evil person and glues this in the same video, but then is using Jeffree to substantiate his point. Kind of being like, well, those who detract from me are trying to legitimize it, etc., which I think is very interesting. There were texts shown by James from Jeffree that were very interesting because they were not intended to go public, but a lot of these things were still being said directly, which to me sort of, I don't know if it necessarily might have just been like Jeffree trying to like abuse his power to scare him, or if there was more truth to these things than like we'll really know. Jeffree says to James, are you going to respond to everything or pull a Manny 2.0? When you basically trapped Sam in your hotel room in Seattle and psychologically forced him to stay and made him feel horrible for their pennies you spent on the room, I knew something was terribly wrong with you. When Zach showed me the Snapchat messages of you trying to force him to like you, and send him, it was completely horrifying to see you use the same sentences as a rapist would use. He was so grossed out by your behavior and the way that you try to make him feel bad for not reciprocating the same feelings. And then there's another one that says, Grayson is going on camera shortly to finally tell the world how you tried to kiss him and touch him in his sleep and made him uncomfortable for months, you sick fucker. Next, Zach will be going on camera to tell how twisted and sick you were, trying to get him to like you and then make you feel bad when he didn't want to send you photos back. Then Sam from Seattle will be joining me and Cameron to talk about you trapping him in the hotel room. You need to be locked in prison for a very long time. You need the internet taken away from you. You are a danger to society. A lot of these behaviors, hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft, that can be pieced together, do kind of exist in the parts negated from Sam's video in combination with the twisting of the narrative that I feel like James did once you watch both videos back to back. Hopefully, I think Sam's video is still up. It will be my sources section, but I do applaud you to watch Sam's video. And then I think I said where it was in the video when this all started. Yeah, so rewatch Sam's video, then go to the 17-minute mark on No More Lies and watch them really close together. And I feel like it's telling in a way that James didn't really want it to be. That's just my opinion, though. Let's keep it pushing. Now, the video ended with James just sharing his plans and how he wanted to go, like, touch more grass and talked about the Sisters tour. There were some more things about how, like, everyone lied except for him. Blah, blah, blah. Mind you, there's a lot of things, like I said, that, like, in context were not really dispelled. And it really goes to show the power of someone just, like, being confident. You know, like, the way that if someone says something with a sense of certainty, that it implies there is certainty, you know what I mean? And that there is truth to this. And this is another kind of concept they do talk about in Rhetoric as well, which I don't have this in the script, but I think it's actually in here. This is my, my old course pack. Oh my God. From when I took, like, my Intro to Rhetoric course in 2020. So we know how that went. No, things that are true and things that are better are by their nature particularly always easier to prove and easier to believe in. Again, it is absurd to hold that a man ought to be ashamed of being unable to defend himself with his limbs, but not of being unable to defend himself with speech and reason. When the use of rational speech is more distinctive of a human being than the use of his limbs, and if the objective, the one that uses such power of speech unjustly might do great harm, that is a charge which he be made in common against all good things except virtue, and above all against the things that are most useful as strength, health, wealth, generalship, A man may confer the greatest benefits by a right of these to inflict the greatest injuries by using them wrongly. So that's just, like I said, it talks about like the power of kind of like of lying in a speech and things like that. But there's also something else somewhere, and I'm not about to freestyle look for that. But in this, I believe it's in the same text, or it's in Cicero, or it's somewhere around that classical rhetoric era, that talks about how essentially like people are inclined to believe people unless there are strong indicators that they are not. And the thing is that the online landscape decided that emotional videos, that being sad, that crying, that whatever, were strong indicators of lying rather than indicators of reaction. So what James did is he flipped the indicators, utilized the truth indicators as the forefront of the conversation that he was having. And that is kind of why people felt they were inclined to believe him. But now we get into the last part, which is part 5, the aftermath. Now, my video on the rhetoric of No More Lies, I addressed the way that the video aged because of the allegations that came out about James in 2021 and 2022, etc., right? And the way that there seems to be, perhaps in my opinion, things that have been consistently popping up over the past few years that James is not seeming to learn from. James seemed to have felt a certain level of being untouchable because of the response to No More Lies. However, the allegations from 2021, maybe 2022, it's 2021, I think, did not relate just to straight guys, but allegedly to multiple underage boys as well. James repeated a similar pattern to Dramageddon with this sort of first sloppy apology where he admitted to being desperate, which he deleted and then replaced it with, instead of something more powerful and direct like No More Lies, this sort of weird chit-chatty get ready with me where he essentially threatens legal action against anyone who would dare like comment on the things that at the time the now gone from the internet drama channel Deaf Noodles was sharing.
As you guys know, I posted my Holding Myself Accountable video, and in that video talked about how basically 2 guys had come forward with stories on social media about how I had inappropriate contact with them when they were under the age of 18. Now, when this was all going on, my first reaction was to be super upset because I did mention in that video that they had lied to me about their age and that I absolutely did not groom them. And my first reaction was to post a No More Lies style of video debunking everything and fighting back and everything. And then I really had to sit down and reflect and look back at myself and my actions and things that had happened. And I really realized that at the end of the day, as the adult and the person with the platform, it was 1000% my responsibility to be doing my due diligence and checking into the people that I was speaking to, and I failed to do that. And that really, really sucks. And that's why I uploaded that video, because I felt as though it was really important for me to hold myself accountable, give people an explanation as to what went down, and most importantly, apologize to the people that were actually affected by my actions. One of the responses that I saw quite a lot on social media and in the comments of that video was a lot of people felt like I felt like this is just another James Charles scandal that I could easily move on from like nothing ever happened. And I really feel as though it's important for me to just address right away that that is absolutely not the case in any way, shape, or form, and that could not be further from the truth. First of all, I feel like calling this a scandal in the first place is just not an appropriate word to be using with this situation. There's no denying that I've been in my fair share of scandals online, but using that word with this situation just feels really, really wrong. And it really feels like it's making light of what actually happened, and I don't want to do that. I definitely have not been taking this lightly. If I thought that this was just some stupid scandal that I can move on from, I would not have uploaded my last video and I would be posting on social media like nothing ever happened. But this has been the worst but most important wake-up call of my entire life for a lot of different reasons, and this is by far the most embarrassing thing to ever happen to me. I mean, if you guys have been following for a while now, you all know what happened in 2019. I'm definitely not going to get into that, but you know, when that all happened, I was accused of something that I did not do, and I was able to prove it all wrong, but I did recognize that I needed to make changes, and I uploaded a video making a lot of promises to my audience and to the public that I was going to work on myself behind the scenes, and I did. I spent 2 years, you know, changing my behavior, changing the way that I went about dating and flirting with guys. I worked on rebuilding my brand and my social media presence, and now, 2 years later, that this is happening again, even though the situations are not connected, even though it's a different thing, it really looks as though I have made no progress, I haven't listened, I haven't learned, and that sucks so much.
Story time on how I was one of James Charles' victims. Now, this happened almost exactly 3 years ago now. I was 16, just had turned 16 a few months before, and there's some people are going to be like, why are you making this video right now? I'll tell you right, because I have been seeing some stuff about him like unveiling a new palette or something like next week, and some people are like, I know he's controversial, but like his makeup is just so good. He's a freak. Like, he needs to be locked away. Everything that has ever been said about him online regarding this topic, I 100% believe, because I have first-hand knowledge. So here we go. November 7th, 2020, 9:24. Age check! You're thinking, could be harmless. He's just asking for my age. Yeah, it wasn't. So this is a really complicated but also uncomplicated situation, which is why I never talked about it, because I just didn't have the heart to. But basically, he DM'd me that, and I responded and I said, I'm a very mature 16. Now I understand right off the bat, I shouldn't be talking like that. I should not be egging someone on like this, or like trying to like entice them. That wasn't my intent, I'm sure, but that's definitely how it came off, and I understand that now. But that being said, no matter what, I was a child, and he was like 22. Like, and it was also James Charles. So you're 16, and you're seeing this, and it's like insane. I didn't know what to do. My brain was so like, it was empty. I had no thoughts going through. I had no idea what to do. I already said that, but it's so true. Whatever, I really, like, at the end of the day, there's nothing I could have said. He should have just stopped the conversation. He was the adult. So we had like maybe 5 texts back and forth on Instagram. It was, age check, I'm a very mature 16. Oh damn, don't want to catch a case. And then after that, it was just like kind of stupid. Like, that should have been end of conversation. But then he proceeded to add me on Snapchat. So this is 10:23. So an hour after this, or after I had responded to him and had the conversation. No. Again, you could just be like, oh, he could have added you on Snap before he got your age and thought maybe you were 18, like whatever. No, this was, I'm telling you right now, this was after that. So you can believe that or not. But he then proceeded to snap me, and we snapped for a while, didn't really talk much, like whatever. Then I get this snap one day. Now, this is November 24th, 2020, James Charles. I don't know if this was the actual snap. I don't have any screenshots of my snaps, but I opened this snap, and I swear to God, it was a full ass pic of like him in a mirror, something, whatever. And I was just like, oh, what the fuck? To which he responded, what did I send? I said, you just sent a child your ass pic, actually. And then, I kid you not, he said, oops, sorry, that was for my kitty girls group chat. Or maybe someone else. I don't know. Sorry. Blocked me immediately. Right then and there. And that's all I have to say on the topic. That's all I need to say. I don't really care if anyone believes me. I was in the situation. I know what happened to me. I know that people might want to try to blame me for saying what I said to him, but like, I was a child. He had the upper hand. He needed to have not done what he did, and he did it anyway, and he needs to reap the consequences. And yeah, maybe people should stop supporting him or something.
Essentially what had happened was Def Noodles just took every single person claiming that James Charles, messaged them or whatever, and tweeted it out like it was the gospel truth, but had like 500,000 followers. I think he had over 1 million Twitter followers, I think even. Then kind of in the Def Noodles drama, which I do have a video on, he kind of backtracks it and says like, I was always a satirical channel. Like I was never meant to like be credited or whatever. I'm also going to put in the clip where he says he's desperate, because if you don't remember what I'm talking about, you'll know as soon as it comes up.
And I finally came to a conclusion. It sucks, and it is ridiculously embarrassing to admit this, but I think I have to, and that is that I'm desperate.
Obviously, the impact of No More Lies itself, in context to James Charles' career, has dramatically changed. The format itself still holds true. As far as the beauty community, there have been countless video essays, commentary, and drama videos speculating on if the beauty community died. One of them in the sources is actually Paige Christie talking about this. Given the repeating characters from Dramageddon 1, 2, and 3, along with the gravity of the allegations in comparison to what was previously discussed, broke any remaining facade of camaraderie that existed amongst this larger beauty community. Don't get me wrong, I think that this being something, as in this being Dramageddon 2, happening right as right before the pandemic happened, and then Dramageddon 3 happening early stages of the pandemic, also kind of made things go a little bit more intense. Because also you have to understand, in the context of the pandemic, this is a time where people were not, wearing makeup or beauty products. Not only that, the pandemic had a very adverse effect on the economy, with the state of inflation post-pandemic has forced people to prioritize more essential purchases as prices have gone up. Some things double, but wages have stagnated. They have been forced to prioritize expenses like rent, utilities, and food, as opposed to being able to buy the 15th palette that is Jeffree Star approved this year. Another thing that was beginning to shift was the disenchantment to influencers and celebrities that was already happening as a result of this event and other scandals within the beauty community. The pandemic really created a new sense of class consciousness within the general population. And while of course class consciousness exists, like the Communist Manifesto talks about it, and that's like what that book was written a very, very long time ago. But like it's just this general, there's obviously different levels of accessibility, and I talk about this a lot, like pretty often as well, that like the left on the internet make things appear very, very inaccessible with this sort of like moral grandstanding, gatekeeping, and throwing in as many big words as possible, and people arguing over these very minute semantic details and never wanting to extend an understanding to people, even when it can be or is things that are sort of, you know, not negotiable, like anti-LGBTQIA rhetoric and racism and things like that, but where it's like, it's not the responsibility of those that are marginalized to do so, mind you. There needs to be a sort of push for them to change without just discounting them as unfixable, horrible people altogether. And this is something that I find is not very prevalent, but the pandemic did put into people's faces that there was this sort of large class disparity between the experiences, because now it wasn't only just like, oh, I have trouble affording my bills, but Kim Kardashian has like 3 houses or whatever, or this like multi-million-dollar mega mansion with sinks that don't even look like they have like a drain. Now you've gotten, oh, everyone I know, or like not everyone obviously, but a ton of people are passing away because they can't afford healthcare, or they can't afford the aftercare, or they got long COVID and now they're on disability, and disability is not enough to pay for anything. Meanwhile, these celebrities got all the medical attention they needed, and now they're so frivolous that they're just taking, you know, like anything for aesthetics. They're doing all this stuff, and the average population is just sat with the dust. People are not seeing it as a form of class consciousness. It's not what they're calling it, but they are seeing this sort of big shift between the experiences of the elite down to even the most minute thing, like almost like the right to live, versus the experiences of the common person. Think of it this way. If you look at the cultural decline of the Kardashian-Jenner family, with Kylie Cosmetics in the decline, which was a brand that was at the very heart of the beauty community at its inception, do you really think James Charles is safe? There's a paper that I read all the way back into my introduction to rhetoric class. I just brought out the reader for, right? Which, you know, as I mentioned, I took in the winter 2020 semester. So I didn't even get to see the class to its completion, but I still have all the papers. And I thought this actually got lost when I moved, and my boyfriend found it like a month ago. So I'll be using some of these to the videos because they're intro text, so they're also way easier to work with. But in this book, there is a paper called Global Capitalism and Critical Awareness of Language by Norman Fairclough. So I'm actually going to read from the course pack reader. There's a particular section of the paper titled Textually Mediated Social Life. I also have the paper linked to, I can't link it in the description because it would link to my university library proxy, and I'm not about to dox myself, but I'll put the citation for the paper down below. And this paper discusses the way that modern societies and knowledge are kind of very tightly intertwined, and that we have a sort of knowledge-based economy where the drive is receiving information and in different forms. Even simple things like general representations in media, relatability, perceptions, common thoughts, common opinions. The paper writes, as everyday lives become more pervasively textually mediated, people's lives are increasingly shaped by representations which are produced elsewhere. Representations of the world they live in, the activities they're involved in, their relations with each other, and even who they are and how they should see themselves. The text also then continues to talk about how discourse itself is a commodity, which I actually really wish I knew that I had this when I was making videos talking about the sort of concept of influencer, the person being a commodity, as opposed to, let's say, when you're selling like a more direct service, or when you're selling a product. Like, I don't know, this like random little dinosaur fan that I use to dry my setting spray. There's the more regular version of selling the product where you leave it in the store, you leave it in Dollarama, so little Miss Mika can go get one of these. Or now you have the sort of attachment to, oh, you want to buy this dinosaur fan because Mika, who I like and trust from her personality and the content that she provides me and the service she provides me, which is knowledge-based, now that she has a knowledge base that she's provided for me, I in turn have more trust, and that can trickle down into a more economic persuasion, right? That's kind of what it's getting at. I also, like, I'm not trying to, obviously, like, I don't have, you know, but this is the other thing too, right? On the other end, influencers have sort of ruined this, which I did talk about before, where like the links are broken, the trust is broken, because now you'll see me talking about this thing that I just like, and then people will be like, oh, you're trying to scam me, right? I remember in the research stream, for this very video, I went on like a weird random tangent because I was just like, hadn't been live for a long time and just wanted to yap, where I talk about this like perfume that I got from Lush. That's like a dupe for a perfume that I talked about in a Scentbird read. So what I was trying to say to people was kind of like, yo, there's like, if you don't want to use this service thing, perhaps you can actually like, you know, there's a dupe for this that exists that I like a lot. And people were like, why is this all a big ad? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, girl, I'm literally talking to you like a bestie and I just want to recommend something that I like. You know, so that even things down to that simple of just someone who happens to exist online talking about something that they just like, because of the distrust created from this economy, this influencer economy, and in turn this knowledge economy, the perception has completely deteriorated. There is another section I want to read from, but I need to define the terms for it first, because there's a lot of big old words that are confusing, and before someone thinks I'm patronizing them, I had to look up the words because I haven't read these in a long time. This is for me also. So there's a term, technologization, which is using systematic tech-driven approaches to communication. Okay, so it just means like using tech as the main form of communication. Normalization, which is just making things uniform or standard to normalize something. Homogenization, which is making everything the same. And audit culture, which is using a set of culture-based characteristics to evaluate and create these new standard evaluation characteristics. So it just means like how I was talking about how I couldn't talk about the perfume because people thought I was in turn trying to sell them something, and in turn maybe perhaps trying to scam something, because there's a set of audits, a set of parameters that you're evaluating these things on based on past knowledge that you have retained through the influencer space, through things like all of these influencers fighting over what began as a vitamin issue. So I feel that the whole event created a new set of standards for the commodification and in turn people's expectations. And it also changed the way that people would address controversy and navigate the beauty influencer space as a whole. So this section is called the commodification of discourse, and it reads, semiotic stuff is a feature of a great many commodities these days. The nature of commodities has been changing, with a shift in emphasis broadly from goods that are more physical than cultural, like cars, to goods that are more cultural than physical, like books, television programs, or advertisements. Language is part of the service, part of the goods. As commodities become semiotized, semiotics, for something to be a semiotic, it just means like it's a sign delivering a message. So like semiotics, for example, a very common and simple way to explain semiotics is like the studies of like making signs, like as in physical road signs. You know how there's like a stop sign and it's like the red hexagon? Yes. The red hexagon that says stop, or if you're Quebecois, it says arrête in the middle. There's the, so that being an indicator that you need to stop. Someone developed, okay, well, let's make it red. There's going to be a sense of urgency. Let's do the text in white so there's high contrast. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like the study of semiotics, because I didn't define semiotics before that. As commodities become semiotized, discourse becomes commodified. It becomes open to process of economic calculation. It comes to be designed for success on markets. Technologization, girl, why can't I say that word? Technologization, that is like the hardest word on earth to say for me, of discourse produces general formulas for change which tend to ignore differences of context. So that one effect of such cultural technologization, I'm not going to pronounce that properly, but you're going to deal with it, is normalization, homogenization, and the reduction of differences. For instance, the imposition of standardized audit culture and the discourse that goes with it, the discourse of quality control throughout the public domain, including education. So it's just talking about how as discourse becomes a commodity, as talking becomes a commodity, there is going to be a set of standards that exist amongst a culture. And as these things develop into our thoughts, into the way that we communicate, into the way that we just speak to one another, things are going to gradually become more and more similar, as it's shown in the way that now, if you don't make an apology video like Normal Lies, people think that you are lying. Even though things like emotions, things like crying are things that can happen when you are stressed. And a lot of people, which I've said this too as well, get frustrated because they're like, well, you're just mad that you can't make money anymore. Which is true, but there is an attached stress of losing your entire livelihood at the drop of a hat. Mind you, a lot of times it's because of really horrible things, so it's kind of like, well, it is what it is. The downfall of the community is this, as a result of this disconnect between the trust required to sell a physical commodity and the actions leading to a solid foundation for the community. And in order to have that sort of direct connection, that leads to things like the positive internet traffic, the AdSense and the revenue and all that kind of stuff. But that is where I'm ending off finally. To conclude, I'm going to summarize what we went through real quick because it was a lot. We went through the context that led to Dramageddon along with each individual perspective. A lot of the missing videos that were hard to find online, I found as many of them as I possibly could. With this, we applied multiple scholarly contexts such as critical discourse analysis, trauma-based intervention, critical media awareness, classical rhetoric, and I'm sure there was more things that I mentioned that I forgot. Links, sources, ways to support the channel all down below, including an email to suggest content. I hope y'all enjoyed the feature-length film video. I am just shy of 2 hours filming this right now. We'll see how long it comes out at the end. I hope y'all have an amazing day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye!
What to do if your baby is choked?
Boring.